I thought I was supposed to be a missionary nurse, but I thought that meant going to China or Africa or India, something like that. And I never really felt the calling of exactly what I should do until I came to the pregnancy center. When I went on staff, one of the other staff members said, yes, we're missionaries here. And all of a sudden I realized that this is what God had planned for me when I was 10, was when I surrendered my life to be a missionary nurse. And so I had never heard of pregnancy centers. They never even existed, I don't think, until probably about the time I was 10 years old. So we are missionaries at the pregnancy center, and I have loved my years there. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about everything. But first I want to just kind of start with Pastor May. When I talked to him, he said something about if you have pictures and all that, and I usually just make my outline and talk, and I thought, oh, maybe I better do something, so hopefully this will work. When we got ready to come here, we keyed into our GPS, Grand Cane Baptist Church, and it took us exactly how we got here, and we got here just fine with no problems. But has anybody in this room ever had an issue where the GPS is taking them somewhere really crazy? I have. The worst time was when a number of years ago, my daughter is a big athlete, and she was doing a fitness event in Austin. And so it was supposed to be held at a church. It was a church school, but it was the school's football athletic facility. So and the night before we got there, and I said, okay, let's go find it just to make sure, because she had to be there at 7:30 in the morning, and I thought we can't mess around. I'm not a morning person, and we needed to have no doubt where we were going. So we keyed in the address, take exit 23, go down the service road, turn right, you've reached your destination. I'm looking around. It was the parking lot of an office building. This was not an athletic facility. So I thought we must have done something wrong. So we went back and did it again and again. And we got on the map and we're looking. And it literally over an hour. And we're still not finding where we need to go. Finally, I got a different map, not the one I originally used. Go past exit 23, go to exit 24. And then you make a few turns and right there it is. So one of the things I learned from that is, it depends on the map you're looking at as to whether you're going to get there and get to where you need to be. All of us in life have looked at the wrong map sometimes. We don't follow the right people, we don't follow the right advice, and we get our place in life somehow where this is not where I wanted to be. And that's what I find with and I call them girls a lot just because they're so much younger than me. And so if I say girls, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but the young women that come to the pregnancy center have kind of lost their way. They've listened to the wrong GPS, and now they need some help, so they come to us. And that's what that first one is. So if you will, next slide, please. So first of all, I just wanted real quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I think a lot of you have had speakers come here before. What does the pregnancy center offer to these people that are lost? Well, the first thing we do is we do a pregnancy test. And then while the results are being done in the lab, then we talk to them about what's your situation, how do you feel about possibly being pregnant, what about the baby's dad, do you have support system, what are you thinking about doing? And if they're thinking that they might want to have an abortion, then what we do is we cover pregnancy options. It includes abortion, but we want them to know what are the risks and the potential complications that can happen from that. We also suggest maybe adoption is an answer, and we talk about that. We don't arrange adoptions, but we can give them referrals to that. And then parenting is the third option of what we can do with the pregnancy. So we discuss all the options with them. Then we do ultrasounds, and that's one of the big areas where I come in, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about what we do with the ultrasound. So we want to really see what's going on inside the woman. We know she got pregnant, but what's happening inside. we are a faith-based nonprofit. We're non-denominational. So we really want to focus on spiritual needs. So we do ask questions about that. Sometimes we can share the gospel with them. Very often we can pray with them about their situation and offer to them the help that only God can give them through this situation. A lot of people are worried about finances and material goods and how are they going to, they're scared about being a parent and how am I going to deal with this whole thing. So we have the Parenting Center. And that's actually how I got started, was teaching classes. And the program ended up growing and growing and got bigger and bigger. So we ended up having to have a whole new building for that. And the young women and the men, we really encourage the dads to be involved, take classes on pregnancy, parenting, and Bible studies sometimes, and other life skills. And they earn points from the classes. They earn points from other ways that they can do this. And then they get material goods. People donate every kind of baby item that you can think of, clothing and car seats and diapers and strollers and cribs, all those kind of things. People donate to the center, and then the clients earn that with their points from being a part of it. And we want them to learn to be really good parents from that. One thing that a lot of people don't really realize is they decide that if I'm just not pregnant and I have an abortion, then I'm not pregnant anymore and everything's going to be great. But a lot of times what happens is the women regret the choice that they made. And they spend a lot of time feeling guilty and shameful, and they just really have a tough time with that. And so sometimes they hang on to this for years and years and years. So one of the things we offer is abortion recovery groups. The lady that leads these groups is someone who's actually had an abortion herself. And she knows firsthand all the emotional struggles that she had for years and years. And she's heard hundreds of women tell their stories, and men, because men can really struggle with this too. So the primary program that we have is a faith-based program that brings Jesus into the picture. There's a lot of people that are not Christians, and they kind of shy away if we say it's a Bible study. So we have a very similar program, and a lot of times the testimonies that are given are people who have found their healing through Jesus, and that is a part of the program. So if you know of anybody, if you are the one struggling with a past abortion and you need some help, we want to help you. And so all you have to do is just let us know, and it will be very confidential. And just give us a call, and we'll get into contact you about when the next group is. We have someone who goes into the community and speaks about sexual health education in the proper way that it was meant to be. And so they can go to youth groups, and sometimes they go to schools. Generally, those are private schools. And then they can go out into the community and into different kind of events that the community has to share what Pregnancy Center can do for them. Brand new this year is going to be Men's Advocate. And we found out that men really can use some counseling and someone who can be their mentor. So we're starting to train some men to help meet the needs of the young men that are facing fatherhood that they weren't expecting. Okay, next slide. This is just some very quick facts. It was in 1973, about this time of year, when the Supreme Court decided that the Constitution gave the right for abortion and that the federal government would be the one making the biggest decisions about abortion. And so there was a lot of disagreement on that, and then the Supreme Court looked at it again in 2022, and they decided, no, the Constitution does not give the right to an abortion. This is a subject that really the Constitution gives to each individual state. And so at that time, each state got to decide what they wanted. I'm going to show you a map in just a second. The Pregnancy Center started in 1994, and then there's some statistics. There's been over 1,800 babies that are saved that we know of, because a lot of times we can't get hold of the people after we've talked to them, and sometimes we never find out exactly what happened. But there have been many, many lives changed through salvation, through abortion recovery, and through just making a different decision. Next slide, please. So a lot of times people say, oh, well, now that abortion's illegal in Louisiana, that must mean Pregnancy Center, what are you guys doing? You must not be needed anymore. No. People are still getting pregnant. People do not want to be pregnant, and people still want to have an abortion. And if you think about it, everybody of childbearing age, from the time they were born, have been told abortion is an option if you get pregnant and don't want to be. okay? That's all they know. And so the first thing, the map they've been listening to has been saying, well, if you may not need it, and you don't know how many people have come in and said, I never thought I would be the one sitting in this seat choosing abortion, but this is what I'm thinking about. So we get lots of calls now, lots and lots of calls of people that need some information. And so one of the things we tell them is, come to us, we'll do a free pregnancy test, a free ultrasound, we'll give you some information, and then you can make your decision. So we're seeing a lot more people that are very, very abortion determined, more than ever before since this was overturned. Now this map, I don't know if you're able to see it very well or not, but it was designed by Guttmacher Institute. This is a pro-abortion group, and they do a lot of statistics, and so they have done this. And what they say, you may not be able to read it totally, but the red states are all the states where abortion is illegal, or it's illegal after you can see a heartbeat, which is about 6 weeks from the last period. So how they describe it is, the dark red is most restrictive. So it's totally opposite of what people who are pro-life believe, but all the red states, abortion is illegal. Then you go to the orange states, and the orange states, they say, are very restrictive, and that's because they do allow abortion, but only up until about maybe 12 or 15 weeks. They might want you to have a 24-hour waiting period. They might require that you have an ultrasound. They won't allow Medicaid or insurance companies pay for the abortion, so they're very restrictive. I'm not going to go through all the rest of them, but if you look at the colors, you'll see that as you go down the list, they become more and more pro-abortion until you see the very dark blue, Vermont and Oregon. They will both do abortions up until birth, and for any reason, and the Medicaid and insurance companies are required to pay for the abortions. Children can go without their parents' knowledge and have abortions in those states. So, and then there's a few others. New Mexico is one. You can have them pretty late. A lot of the other colors, very many of them will do the abortions until viability. That's kind of a range. Some people will say 22 weeks, some will say 26 weeks, and that's the age where a baby could possibly make it if it was born that early. So these are all things that, so if you look at this, you'll see when women come to us, a lot of the southern states, they're not going to get an abortion, so they have to travel. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to them, I really want them to understand, well, what are the risks and the possible complications? More than 50% of abortions are done now through the abortion pill. Now, it's really not just one pill, it's 2 pills. The one pill you take, and that pill will block the progesterone, which is what keeps the baby alive. And so you take that, and then within about 48 hours, then you take the second pill, which makes you have contractions. These pills work best when they were taken earlier. So when the FDA first approved it, they said no more than 7 weeks from your last period. Now they've decided maybe 11 weeks, 12 weeks. There are a few abortion clinics will give the pills up to 13 weeks. The later you take it, the less likely it's going to work, and the more difficult the experience will be. I began to look up the 2 drugs, and this is where I get very angry. Because very often they're like, you don't need to have an ultrasound. It's just ridiculous to require these women to have ultrasound. I've done thousands of them. You need an ultrasound. Best practices for the health of that mother, you must do an ultrasound so you can find some things out. Number 1, this is what we do at the pregnancy center. We want to know, is the pregnancy in the uterus? There's about 2 to 3% of all pregnancies are ectopic, which means it's growing outside the uterus. Most of the time, that's in the tubes. The tubes are not stretchy. If that pregnancy keeps growing in the tubes are going to burst. Mom can die very quickly through bleed out. Abortion pills, abortion surgery will not get rid of an ectopic pregnancy. There's a number of women and physicians across the country are seeing this happen either in their offices or in the emergency rooms. Women have been given the abortion pills without knowing whether they have an ectopic pregnancy or not. They think that they're not pregnant anymore, and they begin to have a ruptured tube. It's terrible, it's horrific, and it does not say to me that the abortion providers care about the women, because there's a lot of women suffering very bad consequences from these things. Secondly, we need to know how far along you are, because we need to know, can you still have the pill, and will it still work? Thirdly, we need to know, is your baby even alive? Because there's a number of ultrasounds I've done, the baby's not alive, and that mom's about to miscarry anyway. And so it's a whole different way that we start looking at things, but that's very, very important information that we need to know. So when a provider is saying, oh, you don't need an ultrasound, that's horrible that they're making you have an ultrasound. No, best practice is you need an ultrasound. The abortion pill, back to that. So I have this app on my phone because a lot of moms come in and they're worried because maybe they have blood pressure problems, or maybe they have, That's going to stop buzzing in a second. Someone's trying to call me. So I have an app that will look up, and it's just a regular medical app. It's probably more pro-choice than anything. So the two medicines that you can take with the abortion pill regimen both have black box warnings. Have you ever heard of a black box warning? A black box warning is reserved for medications that have very serious side effects, that can have very serious life-threatening side effects. Both of them say this. There's not a lot of medicines that I look up. Now, there could be, because I'm maybe cancer drugs, whatever. The requirement is, if it's a black box warning, the physician that's ordering this needs to monitor the person very carefully, and they also need to explain all the risk of taking this drug. So both of these have a black box warning. And what we have right now, we actually have people mailing the abortion pill to the people, even in the states where it's illegal. And sometimes it's coming from overseas. Number one, do you really know what you're getting? But secondly, some of these side effects can be horrible, and you don't have a physician at all monitoring what's going on with you. It's very serious. It's very, very frightening to me. The first pill that you take can cause a very overwhelming infection, and it can also cause extreme bleeding. The second one that causes you to have contractions, you have a risk of uterine rupture. Your uterus can actually rupture or basically explode. I don't know how often that happens, but it's like, that's horrible. And we're getting this stuff through the mail, and it makes me really angry. So then that's why I have to kind of remind myself, a couple slides down, who I'm really fighting against. Okay, the next slide, please. So we talked about viability, and I wanted you to meet Olivia. Olivia is our newest granddaughter. She was born December 23rd. She weighed 1.5 pounds and was 15 weeks early, about 14 weeks early. Now, because of the grace of God and through the amazing technology and protocols that are in place right now, she's doing absolutely fantastic. She'll be a month old on Tuesday, and she now weighs a little over 2 pounds. She's off the ventilator and doing really, really good. When I look at those states that say viability is kind of iffy, and I look at my granddaughter, and I'm thinking there are people that believe that you can believe, if you don't want to be pregnant, she's not a person, she's nothing but a blob of tissue, and we could just get rid of her in the trash. That's very disturbing to me. So, next slide. Here's what I have to remind myself. So, no matter whether it's the issue of abortion, unplanned pregnancy, or everybody needs to figure out, what is your main sin? Because we all have something. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's alcohol or drug abuse. Maybe it's cheating, lying, adultery. We could keep going on and on and on. We all have something. So what we all have to ask ourselves is, who am I following? What GPS system am I using? John 10:27, the whole chapter of John 10 is amazing. thing. Jesus talks about being the good shepherd. And he says, my sheep listen to my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So when we decide to choose sin, we're not following Jesus, we're following the other shepherd. And Jesus refers to this one as the hired hand. And he also calls him the thief. John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come so that you may have life and have it abundantly. So when we go back to the whole abortion issue, and to me, the egregious negligence that is probably going on in the medical community there, they're really the thief, and the goal is to kill, steal, and destroy. And, that's really kind of how it all works. John 8:44, Jesus was saying, he was actually saying to the religious leaders of the world, so all of those of us who go to church regularly and think we're so fine, Jesus had a lot of harsh words for the religious community. And he says, for you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer in the beginning, and he has always hated the truth because there's no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So, when people listen to a lie long enough, they begin to believe it's the truth. We're all guilty in some form or fashion, right? And we have to also remember that the thief is really, Satan said in the very beginning, did God really say? And he does that with all kinds of things. And so gets us into a pickle because we begin to take that GPS system that Satan is running, and then we find out that we've done things and we're ashamed and we're embarrassed and we really wish we had not gone there. And now he becomes the accuser going, oh, well, God could never love you because look what you've done. And so that's just how he works. And we have to realize that Jesus says, no, come to me. I want to be your shepherd, and I want to give you life and give it to you abundantly. Next slide. What we have to do is we have to put on the full armor of God. And in Ephesians 6, it says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle, and this is what I have to keep reminding myself of when I get really angry about some of those issues, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And then it goes on to say, stand firm by putting on the belt of truth. That's the first part of the armor. And so you need to read the rest of it. We need to all put on the armor every day. But truth, it starts with the truth. And so that's what I do with the ultrasound, is I want to show people the truth. So if you'll go to the next slide. Now, at the bottom of this, there should be, if you kind of click on that, it should have a little video that might start. Down at the bottom, there will be a little arrow at the very bottom of the image. If you can't see it, that's okay. It just kind of, there we go. It should show the little heart beating. Can you see the little blinking of the white thing that's in the middle? That is the baby's heartbeat. This baby is 6 weeks from the last period. Next slide. This baby's, okay, go to the, yeah. So this baby is 9 weeks and 5 days. And if we can get that one to start moving, we'll see that little baby's little heartbeat in the middle. And then the next slide. This is a profile of a little baby. And if you really look closely, you can see where the mouth is in the profile. And the baby's actually, you can kind of see the tongue. Now there you can see the heart real clearly, and then you can see the little mouth move and the little tongue's moving. The baby's probably swallowing a little bit. This baby was 26 weeks and 6 days. Now the thing about this, and this really shows why it's so important to know how far along you are, because this mama, based on the period that she gave us, we thought she was going to be 17 weeks, and she was almost 27 weeks. So she's 10 weeks farther along than what we thought. So it's very important, like, very early on. Now, she was really planning on parenting and just wanting to kind of know what was going on. For various reasons, she just hadn't gotten in to see a doctor yet. And so, but had she decided early that she was wanting that she was wanting an abortion, and nobody did an ultrasound on her, and they gave her the pills or whatever, and she's 10 weeks farther along than she thought, Imagine what happens to somebody like that. So it's very, very important that we know. And this baby makes me think about Olivia, because this baby was just a few days farther along than what Olivia was when she actually came into this world to see us. Next slide, please. Okay, this is little Grayson. Years ago, I had a client that was in college, and she was here from out of state and was on an athletic scholarship, and she found out she's pregnant. So she came to us very scared. She was thinking abortion would probably be the best plan. She would lose her scholarship. She didn't know what people would think about her, and so she came in. We did an ultrasound and talked to her about things, kind of laid out some different ideas of how things might work out. And in the end, she decided that she was going to carry and parent. She went back to her home state, and then she sent me this picture later on. This is her little boy named Grayson. Next slide. This mama had been coming to the pregnancy center for quite a while. I actually met her pretty early on doing classes and had kind of developed a relationship with her. Years went by, I hadn't seen her. She was kind of thinking she was finished with her family, and she found out she was pregnant again. And so when we did the scan, we saw 2, and there was something about having twins that made her just really kind of excited. And so she just chose not to abort, and she had these babies. She kept in touch with me, sent me things about the gender reveal. She had 2 little girls, and so this has been a couple years ago. So this was very exciting to see, and it will be, God knows what plans he has for these 2 little babies. Final picture. This is Jada. Jada's mom came to the center. She was one of the first people that I actually had. I had in my pregnancy classes. Jada will be 20 in a couple of months. Her mom moved here with her boyfriend. They were several states away from family. She had no friends, no family, and she had a 3-month-old little baby that had been preemie, so he was, very tiny still, and she found out she's pregnant. And so she just was like, she didn't know what to do. She found her way to the pregnancy center, and one of the things they told her about was the parenting center. So she found a support group at the parenting center. And she began to come every week, made friends. I got to be friends with her. And I actually offered, when she went into hospital to have Jada, Scooty came and stayed with us. And then my family was like, when are you gonna have him come over? And and so we kind of became friends. They ended up moving to Tennessee just a few years after that, and I've kept in touch with her. Jada came and visited us a couple years ago. My daughter has a friend that's a photographer, so she took Jada over for this photo session, and she's just gorgeous. And so, once again, it might have been really different had we not had the pregnancy center. So it really, really, all these things, this is just a small sampling, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm almost done, and my time is almost up. Next slide. So you guys, a lot of you are already helping, and maybe pray about it. The number one thing you can do for us is pray. We are really in a spiritual battle, and so we're on the front lines, and we need your prayer. We need prayer for our staff and our volunteers and our board. We need prayer for all the women and men that make their way to us. And so prayer, James says, the fervent righteous prayer of a righteous person has great strength, or availeth much, is in the King James Version. So all of us together praying makes a huge difference. The second thing is you might be able to volunteer. There's all kinds of opportunities. You could be a client advocate or a men's advocate. You might volunteer just helping fold newsletters sometimes and putting on the mailing labels. You might volunteer at the parenting center. You might have a short-term class that you want to teach. You might want to donate things. The baby bottles are great. You don't have to put just change. If you have some bills laying around your house, no matter what the size is, you can even, some of you still know how to write checks. You can write checks and put those in there. So we'll take anything. And the funds that come into the baby bottles can really add up. So I would encourage everybody to take a baby bottle home. It's a great way to get the kids involved because they like to put the money in there. So do that. We are always using baby supplies. So anything at the parenting center, we don't have a budget where we buy everything. We totally rely on the donations of people. Some people like to make blankets, and that's one of the things we do. We take some of those baby blankets that, or quilts, whatever they might be, or little baby hats, and we offer them to everybody that has an ultrasound. And so you should see their lights faces light up. And one daddy recently said, this is for us, I get to keep it? And we're like, yeah. And then there was another little daddy. There was this outfit that you would never think a man would be so thrilled. He was jumping up and down at this little outfit that we had laying out there. So anyway, so those things make a huge difference on what our families think about. The other thing you can do is tell your friends so that more people know about us. And we have big events that happen in the spring. We have the Walk for Life, and then we have our banquet in the fall. And so there's just lots of different ways that you can help and be involved. So we thank you for all that. We appreciate it. And all of these pictures that I showed you, it's because of you. It's people like you that make it possible. Because since we're nonprofit, we don't charge the clients, and we don't get government support at all. We don't want the government telling us that we can't talk about Jesus. So we need local communities to help support us financially and through the volunteers, because if we didn't have our volunteers, we couldn't stay open either. Next slide. So, kind of in summary, the only GPS that's trustworthy is going to be Jesus. Hebrews tells us, oh, I forgot to tell you, put this in there. I did put a few of these newsletters. If you've never seen a newsletter, there are going to be some of these out there by the baby bottles. The only GPS that is trustworthy, we need to keep our eyes on Jesus at all times. And it was so crazy listening to all the worship songs, because all of them had phrases that kind of said the same thing. And all of us need to remember that. Not just the girls that come into the pregnancy center and the men, but all of us need to remind ourselves, which GPS am I following? Hebrews says, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. We have to remember, Jesus is the good shepherd. Satan is a liar, a deceiver, and he's a thief that wants to kill and destroy us. Jesus comes. He wants to give us not just life, he wants to give us abundant life. I'm going to leave on the next slide. This is just information about our contact information, if you need any of that, and I also put my name and cell phone number on there. If you try to call me, it's going to think you're a spam caller, so you can text me, or you can leave a voice message and tell me who you are, and I'll get back to you on that. Since I've used up my time, I'm not going to have questions now, but I will be glad to hang out for a little while and answer any questions that anybody might have. I thank you again so much for inviting me, and I thank you for what your support means for the abundant life that we're trying to offer to our community. Thank you.